Hey there, Simian Squad. It's me, Mr. Sean, here with another installment of Reddit Wednesdays here on Mr. Sean Productions. Now, when we started Reddit Wednesdays back up 2 weeks ago, we started with neckbeard stories, and last week we did RPG horror stories. And honestly, though, when we did neckbeard stories, the numbers on the channel, we haven't seen numbers like that in months. I mean, and hardly any videos have recently done as well as the neckbeard stories video did. So I thought, hey, give the people what they want, right? So we're back with another installment of neckbeard stories. Today we have 2 stories from neckbeard stories and also 2 stories from neckbeard tales. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the first one. Our first story is titled The Neckbeard from the Theater. After reading/listening to neckbeard stories for a while, I realized I have a small neckbeard story of my own. Obligatory on mobile, English is my first language, please forgive me on formatting, etc. I used to work for a movie theater that had a restaurant inside. Really, it was a fast food place with pizza, hamburgers, fries, and better nachos than the concession stand. I started at 18 and stayed for 5 years because COVID caused us to close and then furloughed to get unemployment during. A few years into being there, our theater underwent renovations while we were still open, i.e. when they were doing half of the theaters, the other half is showing movies. Got slow often because half the theater's down, plus hour-ish movie times equals sometimes 2 hours between rushes. I know on paper the math ain't matching, but trust me that it felt like 2 hours between rushes. When it was the restaurant's turn to be renovated, they moved all of us to other departments temporarily. Being one of the bar-certified staff, I was moved to the concession stand. Wasn't that bad, until our neckbeard enters stage right. He looked like he was in his late 20s, early 30s, didn't have a neckbeard, but you'll see why in a minute. I was about 20 at the time. I don't know when it started. Being an autistic individual causes me not to notice things I should earlier, but one day he just started talking to me about his life. Don't remember exact conversations as this happened about 6 or 7 years ago, so I'm going to bullet point the highlights. 1. Told me he got fired from Denny's as a dishwasher, which, how do you even? 2. Said I was pretty and reminded him of some character or person. Again, been several years. 3. We were not supposed to stay exclusively in the bar area of concessions, but I had to sometimes because he was so on top of me and he wasn't bar certified. Even when managers asked why I was in the bar area for a long time, all I had to say was his name and they'd understand and just said to make sure to still do the other concession stuff. He eventually got fired. Can't remember why, but I know I wasn't the only female he bothered. Thankfully, haven't met a neckbeard since. Thanks for reading. Well, I guess we started this one off a little light. I'll be honest, I just kind of go by the title. I don't actually read these ahead of time, so I just kind of, if it turns out to be an absolutely terrible story, I'll probably just scrap it. But this one, pretty standard neckbeard coworker. I'm surprised you hadn't met him before you got transferred into other departments. I mean, you're all kind of in the same area, you're in a theater, but I think we've all known someone who's a little bit too clingy, doesn't pick up on social cues, doesn't realize when a conversation needs to end at work. Hell, guilty as charged. I've been that guy sometimes. I have a YouTube channel. Who'd think I'd love listening to the sound of my own voice? But anyway, not so bad. Glad you're not in that situation anymore, but could have been a lot worse. Moving right along, we have a story called Running into My Old Neckbeard Classmate in the Workplace. So this story starts off a few years ago, while I was still in high school, but it reaches its, hopefully, conclusion just last year. It's going to be a bit long, so I'll just get right into it. Back in school, I was quiet and kept to myself. I wasn't one to approach others to make friends, letting others approach me if they so chose. Not many people did, but that was okay. Those that did were typically pretty nice, but it never really sprouted into any friendships. That was until I met Nick in my junior year of high school. Now, for a visualizer, I'm Korean, very small, and back then presented as pretty feminine. Long hair, cute glasses, and pretty clothes that conform to a strict dress code. Not quite uniform, it just had to be proper, I guess is the best way to describe it. Nick was average height and build, white guy, shaggy, mid-length hair, and wore plain slacks and a polo shirt. I didn't know him prior to junior year at all, so I didn't have the faintest idea of what I was getting into when I let him strike up our first conversation. He was very polite when he introduced himself, so I reciprocated. We mostly talked about previous school year and our goals for the upcoming year, just normal friendly chit-chat. The next few weeks were just conversations about how classes were going and how we were adjusting back into regular schedule. For someone who really didn't have close friendships, it was really nice to have someone I could just talk with about little things. Gradually, we talked more and more about our interests outside of school. We both liked to draw, we liked anime, and we liked the same movies. Sure, he was a little weird, but there was nothing inherently off-putting. Well, I guess he got really comfortable after those first few weeks, and he asked me where I was from. Me being the idiot I am, answered with the town I was born in, which wasn't the town I lived in. He laughed as if I had told the funniest joke he'd ever heard and asked, "No, what country?" Oops, my bad. When I told him I was from Korea, he scrunched his nose and after a moment of silence said, "I guess that's okay." Now this was definitely weird to hear, but I didn't think too much of it. The next few days were uneventful and normal until he came up to me after class and asked, "What is your ideal type?" I didn't know what this meant, so I asked him to clarify. He huffed and said, "Your ideal type of guy? You're Korean and you don't know what that means?" I was shocked. His tone had an aggressive feel to it, and I didn't like it. I wasn't a confrontational person at the time, so I just opted for an apology. I said I was sorry and that I had never heard a question like that before. He says, "It's a common question over there. What do you mean?" I informed him that while I was born there, I was raised in the Midwest United States by a white family. I knew virtually nothing about the culture or life over there. I was very much an American, just like he was. He seemed very disappointed in that answer and walked off before I could actually answer his question. The next few days carried on as if nothing happened, so I quickly forgot about the incident. He eventually approached me again and asked me the same question, so I responded this time. Sweet, livelier than me but not over the top, strong, very basic traits. He hardly let me finish answering before starting on about his own ideal type. Pretty, very feminine, quiet and shy, clingy, and loyal. The list got so specific and long that I couldn't keep up until he said what really caught my attention. Japanese women are my ideal woman, but Korean is okay. I didn't know how to respond. Not that he would have even given me the time to before going on again. He goes on about how Asian women are submissive and quiet and will do anything to please their husband or boyfriend, how they know their place below their man. When I tried to tell him that was a misinformed stereotype, he cut me off and said, "You wouldn't even know. You were raised by white people." I was so shocked that I couldn't even think of how I should respond, so I just walked away from him. He approached me the next day and showed me a photo on his phone of either a Korean singer or actor and asked if I thought he was attractive. I said that I did, and he immediately flew into a rant about how Korean men are abusive and disrespectful to their women, and how they don't deserve beautiful and kind Korean women. This was the same guy who the day before talked about how Asian women know their place below men, and how they're pretty much subservient to them. I told him such a sweeping generalization was incredibly ignorant, but he refused to accept it. I told him I didn't want to hear it and walked away. Now around this time, I started getting close to another classmate from a different class, Caleb, after we were paired up for a class assignment. He was an intimidating looking guy, very tall and already had quite a bit of facial hair for a teen. On top of it, he looked like he was always mad. He wasn't the type of guy I'd approach on my own had I not been paired up with him. He was shy and super sweet, a teddy bear built like a brick wall as far as I'm concerned. I adored him in every way, and we quickly caught on with each other. We started dating soon after Nick's rant about Korean men, so it was a good enough excuse for me to start distancing myself. I didn't outright tell him I was with Caleb, and instead told him I was too busy studying to talk online, which wasn't a full lie. Caleb and I usually only ever hung out to study, with a few outings together here and there. A very chill relationship. When he did eventually figure it out for himself, he went on a rant to me on Facebook complaining that women only ever want abusive a-holes and that I've clearly been brainwashed by American dating culture because I didn't choose the right guy that would take care of me like my culture would have told me to. I don't know where he was getting all of these ideas about Asian women from, but it freaked me the hell out. I told him I was done talking to him and to leave me alone. He did for the most part, completely avoiding me in school but occasionally complaining to me about my relationship online. Eventually, I just blocked him. After that, I didn't really have any issues with him. I didn't really see him much after school thanks to moving to a nearby town. Fast forward several years, and I've since changed my name and look nothing like I did in high school. So when Nick ended up being hired in the same job as me, I figured he wouldn't even recognize me. Caleb and I broke up in high school, on good terms, and after a few years, even he didn't recognize me after seeing me about a year or so prior. Well, I was wrong. He approached me on the first day he noticed me and said, "Your name is old name, right?" I shook my head and said no, and told him my new name. He seemed to accept that answer and walk away. Cool, bullet dodged. Wrong. He came up to me the next day and asked if we went to school together. Again, I shook my head. He said he could have sworn my name was old name again. Again, I told him my name. He shrugged it off and left. Keep in mind, he wasn't even under the same supervisor as me and had no actual business in my workplace, so I knew he was only approaching me because it was me. He kept trying, even outside of work whenever he happened to see me running errands. Small town, everyone shops at the same store. He would always address me by my old name and try to talk to me no matter how many times I told him my new name. It is Korean, and that I wasn't interested in talking to him. I swear if he knew how to spell my new name, he would have found my new social media accounts and harassed me there too. Eventually, I went to my supervisor about the issues, but all he said was that he'd have to talk to Nick's supervisor about it. I never heard anything about it after that. This behavior went on for about 6 months before he was let go, albeit not for the constant harassment. He no longer lives in the same city as me from what I've heard from other coworkers that had spoken with him, so maybe I won't have to deal with him again. So far, so good. So yeah, guys, we cranked up the heat a little bit with this one. It's definitely, high school's a weird time. People are still learning their social graces, but one thing I will say is I have been, in a manner of speaking, where this neckbeard was for certainly it's always hard when you have feelings for someone and they don't share those feelings, not even necessarily romantically. I mean, if you want to be friends with someone, like you think they're super cool and they just want nothing to do with you, that can also be frustrating. Learning to take rejection is one of the most valuable skills you could ever learn. I mean, they ended their friendship on bad terms. Clearly he wanted an Asian waifu girlfriend, and that is not what the OP was willing to be. And but then recognizing them later on and going, "Hey, is this your name?" "No." "Okay." "Hey, we went to school together, right?" "No." "Okay." Even if you know without a doubt that that person is your old schoolmate who you were friends with, you ended on bad terms, clearly they are trying not to engage with you and they don't want to be your friend now. They don't want to talk to you. They want nothing to do with you. And especially since, clearly they had no way to, they had no need to interact on a work basis, just leave them alone. I mean, learning to take rejection is important. Like I said, I've been there, not so much. I make friends pretty easily, and there are some people that just don't like me, but typically I also don't like them, so I don't really put the effort forth. But in the terms of romantic, attraction, there have been times that I've been attracted to people that I, attempted to, act on that attraction, and ultimately they were not attracted to me. And yeah, at first, or in my earlier years, did not take it all that well, but I kind of, looking back, you realize you weren't really in love with that person. You were in love with your idea of that person, which ultimately was not who they were, and so it never would have really worked out anyway. So again, it's always a good idea to be able to take no and to realize when someone is just not vibing with you, whether that's romantically or platonically, guys. And thank you, OP, for your story. I did enjoy reading that one, guys. I enjoyed that story. Alright guys, we're moving away from the Tales of Neckbeard subreddit into the larger Neckbeard Stories subreddit for these next two stories. Sometimes it's the amount of people does not indicate the quality, the amount of members of the subreddit does not indicate the quality of the subreddit, but stories on Tales of Neckbeards are somewhat, they don't come out as often as they do on Neckbeard Stories, but occasionally you do find some gems, so I do recommend checking it out if you've only seen r/Neckbeard Stories up to this point. So, tale number 3 today is The Tale of Armybeard. Back when I was in the army, there was a fellow I worked with in my platoon, and for the sake of privacy, I will address him as Armybeard. Even though he didn't have a neckbeard because the army has grooming standards for soldiers, he definitely embodied the neckbeard spirit. He wasn't a blatantly bad person, he just didn't understand things like social cues, and quite frankly, didn't have common sense. Not to be mean, but he simply didn't belong in the military. It's not a job for everyone because it requires things like discipline, physical fitness, and a sense of responsibility, all of which he was lacking. He was overweight, late all the time, and really just didn't care about his job, and in the military, these things can get someone killed. The weird thing is that even though he didn't like being in the army, the only thing he wore was grunt-style clothing. It was like even though he hated being in the army and was absolutely miserable, he still wanted to show off how he was a service member. My leadership tried for well over a year to set him straight, but despite their efforts, nothing worked. Being patient with him never worked. Nitpicking his every move until he got better never worked. It came to the point where a lot of people thought my platoon was bullying him, which was simply not the case. We never singled him out, called him mean names, or were physically violent towards him. He was just a walking r/army post, and it was honestly incredible. There are so many stories about him that I wish I could tell, but not even this Reddit post could contain them all. I will stick with the most memorable ones. Cast of characters: me, OP, Armybeard, and my good friends / co-workers, Nathan, Jonathan, Sergeant Brady, Sergeant Rivers, AB's direct supervisor, Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, and First Lieutenant Warner. I first met Armybeard about 8 months into my time at my second duty station. He arrived to my unit coming from Korea, and at first he didn't really seem like a bad guy, but it didn't really take long for us to see what kind of person he truly was. AB arrived 2 months to my unit before we were deployed to Eastern Europe, and we were quite busy packing up all of our equipment and prepping our vehicles to be shipped overseas. Oftentimes, we worked over the weekends, we were that busy, and because of this spent a lot of time around AB. Before he really told anything about himself to my platoon, he told us about his fiancée he met on Tinder 4 months before then, who happened to be just an hour away from his home in West Virginia. Keep in mind, AB just got back to the States 2 weeks before this, and really only has seen her in person once, maybe twice, yet he had already decided to marry her. Another red flag is that she has 4 kids, each from a different guy, and since soldiers are guaranteed things like a paycheck, free healthcare, free housing, and free food, I would not be surprised if she just wanted to marry him for these reasons. Outside the military, I wouldn't have cared so much, but in the military, you have to make sure your soldiers meet their needs, are not in debt, and are taking care of themselves. If AB decided to claim her children as his own, and she decided to divorce him, he would be spending over half of his monthly income on child support. His fiancée simply has not proven herself to be a loyal person, and we worried about him, but unfortunately, it's not legal in the military to force your subordinates to not marry someone. You might think that there's still a chance that she loved AB, but I can assure you, she didn't. She avoided nearly every single opportunity to come out and see him and made no plans to move in with him, even after getting married. When my unit was being deployed to Eastern Europe, she didn't come to the goodbye ceremony, and when we came back, she missed the welcome back celebration because she was at Walmart with her kids shopping for a mattress. When he wanted her to come over for Halloween, she said no because of holiday traffic. The scary thing is that he wouldn't even question these things. He would just go along with all these obvious red flags like they were no issue at all. If AB was the love of her life, then why did she miss all these opportunities to spend time with him? I honestly felt pretty bad for him. Sure, he caused a lot of embarrassment for my platoon for things I will explain later in this post, but these things didn't warrant someone to take advantage of him for his money. He told pretty much everybody he met about her, but would never pick up on the fact that pretty much nobody cared and how they thought it was weird how he's marrying a girl he only met once or twice. And sure enough, AB married her the day my unit was being sent overseas thousands of miles away for 9 months. All my platoon could do then was teach him how to be a husband and a father. This was soon found to be a difficult task. Roughly 3 weeks after my unit arrived in Europe, all of our gear and personal items we didn't bring with us on the plane arrived in shipping containers. While my platoon and I were unpacking our stuff near our bunks, we soon discovered AB brought 2 fleshlights with him, and we were all baffled as to why he brought not only 1, but 2 of them. We were staying in a giant tent, and there was no way he could do his business without getting caught. Yes, we were staying in a tent, but it was more comfortable than it sounds. It was well insulated and had 2 big generators for AC and heating. It wasn't that bad, to be honest. Anyways, to get back on topic, after we found out he brought 2 fleshlights, we of course asked him why he brought them. Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Why the hell would you bring those, and why the F do you have two? You know you can't jerk off in the wide open in the tent, right? AB. It's because they were buy one, get one free, Sergeant First Class. I actually tried to give one to someone else, but I couldn't find anyone to give it to. Gonzalez. Them being buy one, get one free still doesn't explain why you brought two. You could have just brought one and been fine. And why would you offer one to someone else? How would they know you didn't use it before? AB. I brought them both because they were buy one, get one free. Gonzalez. You're clearly not listening to me. You know what? Just go about your business. I can't deal with this BS. Flash forward a couple of months later, while we were in Europe, my platoon, specifically Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Sergeant Brady, and Jonathan, were checking up on him and making sure he was trying to improve himself as a husband and father. Sergeant Brady. Armybeard, have you done any research on how to be a father and increase your parenting skills? Armybeard. No, Sergeant, I haven't had any time. Brady. Don't effing lie to me. What do you mean you haven't had time? All you do all day is sit on your bunk and watch Naruto. You're not a single soldier anymore. You need to take this seriously because you now have 5 people who depend on you. You can't just sit on your ass and expect things to work themselves out. Even though you have a wife to help you out, can't expect her to do all the work. AB. Yes, Sergeant, but I don't even know where to look. Brady. Armybeard, you cannot be serious right now. You can find all that stuff on the internet. You are 23 years old, and I know you are more than capable of doing a simple search. You also have me, Jonathan, and Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, who have kids of our own. If your wife comes out and tells the Army that you are incapable of being a father and are not providing for them, you can get in serious trouble. If you love your kids, you need to start showing it. Actually, you know what? What are their birthdays? This one really stumped AB, and it was quite incredible to see. Every day he talked about how much he loved his kids and how he couldn't wait to see them when he got back. But yet he didn't even know their birthdays. It was honestly really pathetic. You'd think this would have motivated him to do better, but it really didn't. About a week after this, AB really wanted to show how much of a leader he could be, so he could get promoted. Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Sergeant Rivers, and Sergeant Brady decided to throw him a bone and give him a chance. To do this, they gave him simple tasks to show off his leadership skills and would be put in charge of me, Jonathan, and Nathan. Despite being given super easy tasks that even the newest soldier could figure out, he would fail very hard every single time. He would often just ask us for help and just pretty much left us to figure everything out for him ourselves and take all the credit. Even when given the task of bringing the platoon's laptop to the unit's IT guys, he failed drastically. He was told that morning to bring the laptops by 1 p.m., but he fell asleep and lost track of time. Sergeant Brady. AB, why the F are you sleeping right now? AB. My bad, Sergeant. I overslept. Sergeant Brady. Yeah, doofus, I can effing see that. Why the hell didn't you bring our laptop to the IT guys? Every time we give you a simple task, you somehow manage to fail. AB. No excuses, Sergeant. Sergeant Brady. I'm really not in the mood for that right now, AB. If you can't even do this, then how do we know you have the ability to take care of family? Stop playing around. We're going to give you one last chance to show your leadership. You are going to give a class on the M249 machine gun to the platoon since you, OP, and Nathan have to qualify with it next week. If you can do that, we will continue to give you opportunities to show your leadership skills. A few days later, he gave his class, and it was honestly quite horrible. He was pretty much just copy and pasted things from the weapons training manual into his PowerPoint. He obviously had no clue what he was talking about, and his class was super boring. Half the time, First Lieutenant Warner, the officer in charge of the platoon at the time, was the one teaching it and was showing the proper firing positions. Flash forward to next week, our platoon went on a 2-hour drive to the shooting range my unit was hosting, the M249 range. After we downloaded our weapons and ammo, got everything prepped, and the range went live, it just so happened that I was assigned to be AB's target spotter. When AB was getting his ammo ready to start shooting, he decided to pull the trigger as he was loading the rounds into his weapon, causing it to spray 4 to 5 rounds straight into the ground 2 feet away from my foot. Despite nearly having my foot blown off, I started laughing my butt off. AB. What the effing F? Why did you start firing like that? Sergeant Rivers. AB. Stop swearing at the gun and get off the range. Now! AB went off to talk with Sergeant Rivers and Sergeant Brady, and while I didn't hear exactly what they said, I do know that they told him he was not allowed to handle any weapon for a very, very long time, and to stop talking about it with everyone, further embarrassing himself. I do have many more stories about AB, but I might stop here since this post is becoming incredibly long. I'm not sure how well this story will be received, but if you want me to write more stories about him, I will. Now, let me preface this, guys, by saying that I do have the utmost respect for people who decide to dedicate their lives to being in the military or the armed forces or any group that serves the safety of the people of their nation. I mean, it is truly an honorable calling. Unfortunately, these positions also seem to attract a lot of idiots because they're really not qualified to do this, but they're really not qualified to do anything else. One of my good friends growing up, he was one of my best friends into my 20s before we had a falling out. He came from a family, not necessarily a military family, though. His father and his father's two brothers were all very successful, including one of them being a 3-star general at the Pentagon for a time before retiring, and my friend failed out of the Marine Reserves because he just couldn't get, even the Marines couldn't get him to stop being a fat ass. And unfortunately, it sounds like AB was one of these style individuals. I do agree with the OP, though. It does sound like he was being taken advantage of for his steady paycheck and his military benefits by someone looking to better the life of her and her 4 children, which again is in of itself a bit of a commendable goal. Unfortunately, it had to come at the cost of taking advantage of a very simple man. Sorry you had to go through that, OP. Hopefully nobody ever got extremely injured due to his negligence. Alright guys, we have one last story, but before we get into it, I just want to say that if you are enjoying this content, please remember to hit that like button, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and please be sure to leave a comment. Again, comments, likes, all this shows the YouTube algorithm that this channel is worth showing to others, and that's going to help us grow, and that's going to help us reach our goals for the year. And so we come to our final story, entitled, Sorry, but I am not your fetish. Hello everyone, OP here. I recently joined this sub, but have seen these types of tales and stories on YouTube from people like Redix and Tim Tam Tom. This is my first time posting here, and I hope the story fits. If it doesn't, could someone please point me to the correct place? Please know, I am typing this out on my phone, so I apologize for any formatting or whatever. Just to let everyone know, this happened to me a while back, and I originally didn't know what a neckbeard or legbeard was. After being told to look it up and see the stories on the internet, I realized that I had a story or two that maybe I could share. This tale of woe is actually a little more creepy now that I recall it. There will be a TLDR at the end, but just so everyone knows what they're going to be reading, a legbeard sent me creepy messages and treated me like a fetish. For this story, I will refer to the legbeard as LB. Really quick, let's address some things about me. I am a 6'5" guy who happily embraces the goth subculture. I also have a deep love of various things considered nerdy or geeky, D&D, anime, video games, etc. I do have some mental health issues I deal with on a daily though. Also, I'm a Norse pagan, specifically following Fenrir. It is actually my Norse pagan beliefs and being a goth that led me to being, let's just say, objectified by the legbeard. This story begins back in college, the end of one of the winter semesters. During my college days, I was a huge introvert, and still am. I focused on my studies and didn't party as well as just stayed home because I didn't want to go out. Also, I just started losing common ground with my old high school friends. One of my friends I had gotten to know through my 3D modeling class had invited me to a small gathering of fellow nerds and geeks alike. Taking a chance, I decided to go and have a good time. These people set up games of all sorts for their gatherings. Various things like Smash, Pokemon, Mortal Kombat, hell, even Cards Against Humanity was there. The leader of this group was nice and welcoming to me at first. Unfortunately, he would start to show me his true colors later down the line. Fast forward a few months, and the leader decided we should all go to a Comic-Con happening in the next city over. Sounded like a good time. While I had fun, there were some red flags with some of the members that I was starting to see. Some ranged from a simple red flag to downright crimson flags. Why I didn't get out then? Well, I wanted friends. At the con, I had 2 cosplays planned, both of which hide a majority of my face. This made it so only people who knew me originally knew it was me. One was Logan Walker from Call of Duty Ghosts, and the other was Altair from Assassin's Creed. I was very self-conscious about how I looked even in my goth clothes from years of bullying both in school and from my family. Wearing a mask or having a large hood covering my face helped a little at the large con. While LB was at this con, she wasn't a part of the big group yet. She met the leader of the group while most people were off doing their own thing at the con. I, for one, was busy trying not to pass out because my Logan Walker cosplay had an actual Kevlar vest and a lot of gear. Been to a con before? It gets really warm in there with all the people. Thankfully, there was a cosplay sanctuary in which cosplayers could take a breather and get water and or snacks. My friend was watching over me, thankfully, to make sure I didn't pass out from heat exhaustion. After the con was done, and we all went back home, I received a random friend request on Facebook from someone. That someone was LB. I then got a random message from them saying I was cute. Keep in mind, my profile picture at the time was me wearing a mask. Unless LB stalked my page to keep the deep recesses of high school pictures, I didn't really show my face. Questioning this random message and friend request, I told LB that they didn't know me or what I looked like. Shortly after, LB disappeared from Facebook after saying goodnight. I thought nothing of it. More time passed, and LB shows up to the group meetings, and the leader introduces her. The leader also says we were having a ceremony in which we'll all be knighted by LB. Apparently they met LB when she was cosplaying Princess Zelda from The Legend of Zelda. I thought it was a little weird and a little cringe, but whatever. We were all knighted. I went back to playing Cards Against Humanity with some friends, laughing at the insanity that was our dark senses of humor, respectively. A few days pass, and I get another friend request from LB on a new profile. This time the conversation is a little more civil. No random compliment out of the blue. We talked about likes and dislikes, what games we were currently playing, and all that. Then it got weird and creepy. Slowly, but still. Subtle flirtings that I didn't reciprocate that turned into blatant hitting on me shamelessly. LB even went as far as to ask me randomly, if you were alone with me, what would you do? I was not even sure how to answer. Seriously, how do you answer that question when you have given no signal of being interested? Insanely creeped out, I asked where that came from. LB admitted to liking me and being in the mood. The feeling was not mutual. I changed the subject to the best of my abilities, but the flirting persisted as time went on. More days pass, and I have been under increasing stress due to finals. It wasn't a simple paper to type up, but rather making various 3D models and backgrounds and a few animations. I was going for graphic design and animation. My fuse was a little shorter than normal because I'm sure at the time my blood was more coffee and monster than actual blood. LB would message me randomly, usually to complain about various things like how it sucked being single, how she wanted to die because she had no man, and how she couldn't do certain jobs due to her weight. I had enough and snapped after trying to give advice. She then called me an ass but said I was like a beast and that beauty needed a beast. Insert creeped out shudder here. I had enough of this, and LB couldn't take the hint that I was not interested. It was then that I did what I wasn't too proud of. I became an arse to get the point across. My parents would do this tactic to get others to piss off. If you were an arse, no one would want to be around you, right? Seemed like a good deterrent to me at the time. Was it mean? Yes. Do I feel bad? Yeah, I kinda do. However, I also felt pushed to that limit. Not an excuse, but still. I got colder and more distant when talking, being a smartass and sarcastic. I would be short in my responses and a little rude. While this helped a little, it was not a cure-all. The final interaction I had with LB was shortly after a friend told me some shocking news. Apparently, the leader of the group gave LB free pickings of any guy in the group because she was so lonely. Supposedly, the leader said any of us would get with her because we were desperate. Newsflash, not all of us were. Anyway, what surprised me more was that LB continued her advances on me and maybe a few others, but a majority was focused on me. Obviously, I was not the only guy in the group. However, I was the only goth guy in this group. I stood out with my height and choice of attire. As one of my friends so lovingly joked, I was a dark oasis to a very thirsty traveler. LB messaged me one last time and said how horny she was and how badly she needed to fix it. I said that wasn't my jurisdiction and that perhaps she should invest into something else to help her. She confessed that she wanted a dark Prince Charming to fix her problem. I stated that I am no Prince Charming and will not do that. She went on about how she loved goths and how we loved the really dark stuff. Foolish me assumed the actual goth likes, music, macabre things, etc. Nope, she said she wanted to be choked, tied up, and a lot of other NSFW things. She said goths were extremely kinky and that she needed that. I said that was not what goth was, and that goths were not something to use as a fetish, that it was a horrible stereotype that people put on them due to misrepresentation. She also assumed goths worshipped Satan. That is when I informed LB that I was a Norse pagan. Big mistake on my part, because she made a horrible innuendo about that. She said I was a Viking and that I could raid her village all night long, and that I should convert her to my sexy heathen ways. Never before had I been so disgusted. After that horrible message, I did what I could. I called my lovely girlfriend to send a clear message to LB, and I blocked LB. Also, let it be known that LB did not care that I was not interested. She thought I was playing hard to get. And for those that wonder why I didn't say I was in a relationship, I honestly think she wouldn't care. That's the end of the story. Let me know if you want to hear any more experiences I have with these individuals. TLDR. Legbeard is let loose on a group of nerds and geeks, decides goth is on the menu, and pesters me with lots of flirting and innuendos. Admits I'm a fetish, and I have to block them. Yeah, we definitely saved the craziest for last, didn't we, guys? Yeah, that's kind of a problem. People who... I think it's common for, unfortunately, for especially thirsty individuals to look at a group that they are attracted to but not a part of, and to build up a kind of fetishized idea in their head of what this group is. Goth is one that definitely, I'll admit, I've been guilty of that. I'm not goth or emo myself. I mean, I am a crazy monkey person who wears Hawaiian shirts all the time. But I am married to a woman who, identifies herself as an emo, and I do love her aesthetic. But again, she is a full-fledged person. She is not simply her attire, and I knew that going into it, but again, I've always been attracted to the alternative look, but it can be easy, especially in my younger years, to think, oh, alt girls are a certain way, and it's like, well, yes, some of them are, but not all. I think another one that commonly gets fetishized is, like, let's put it the cheerleader. Okay, everyone's like, oh, they're dumb, they're slutty, they're bimbos, and it's like, I mean, there certainly are cheerleaders who are like that, but again, like, most of the cheerleaders at my high school were on the honor roll, so certainly not dumb. But, if you're in a certain subgroup, you would understand, oh, hey, we're all unique individuals, but it's weird how the second you're looking at something outside of your own group, you stop believing that other people outside of your own group, people from other groups, you forget that they're individuals as well. Also, I would love to hear more stories about the leader of this friend group who, you'd mentioned their true colors were being revealed, and we got a little taste of it in that they gave LB open season on the guys in the group. Is your friend group called Nexium? What is this? Just offering up people because, oh, they're so desperate, any one of them will get with you. It's like, here's the thing. I don't doubt that there were probably quite a few, if your group is consisted of socially introverted and highly thirsty nerds. I'm sure there were a couple of guys, at the very least, that would have done that, but certainly not all of them. Again, it just seems that both LB and your friend group's leader see all of you more as objects and resources than actual individual people, which is terrible. It's a terrible way to look at your friend group. So I really hope you got out of that and that you met people that are more respectful, because yeah, this is no way to live, no way to have friends. And that's our video today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to click that like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a member or patron, and maybe think about going over to eBay and Mercari, links in the description, and checking out my custom miniatures. Also, if you've made it this far, please post the comment, "Goths are people." Let's do that. So I know you got all the way to here. Goths are people. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day, and an even beta tomorrow. Sorry, alpha great day, and an even beta tomorrow. I'm Mr. Sean. Bye-bye.